Welcome to our very first Founders Friday. I am Karen Slusher, the Customer Experience Officer here at Azure, and I'm with our CEO, David Stelzer, who is going to be speaking to us. Did it even... All right, maybe we are live now, so we're going to start again. Welcome to our inaugural Founders Friday Facebook Live. We are excited to be rolling these Founder Friday events out to you. I am Karen Slusher. I am our Customer Experience Officer here at Azure, and I'm here with our CEO, David Stelzer, who will be speaking to us today and taking questions about what's happening here at Azure, supply chain matters that we have been encountering over the last few months, and kind of how things are going here at Azure, providing an update about our routes, and just all kinds of good things that are happening here at Azure, and then taking questions. If you have questions, please feel free to put those in the comments section, and we will be answering those as we receive them. So I'm going to turn the floor over to David to begin giving you an update about what is happening here at Azure, what the market landscape looks like for supply chain, and what we can expect going forward or anticipating as a company. David?
All right. Well, thank you. So, as far as our Azure routes, this fall was a little bit overwhelming in some ways, more than we could actually have enough trucks and drivers and everything to get delivered, and even to be able to get it all picked in the warehouse in a timely manner. So we had some delays. I am very pleased to announce that we are down to the last of it. So we still have a couple of routes that got pushed out, the A's and the F's that got pushed out. We won't actually technically catch that up till the week before Christmas. But otherwise, we still have a delay this week on the L route, like 2 days, and we have one Rose 2, that is going to be late. Everything else is back on time, and I'm very pleased to say that. And it's not because it's because we've been working really hard at building the infrastructure and building what it takes to get extra deliveries. We were able to recruit a few more trucks and drivers, putting them in strategic places to try to get things done. We asked for customers that were available to those of you that could come and help out at the warehouse, and about 24, 25 people have come, and it's made all the difference. Made all the difference in the world. Before we just were not quite getting it done. We're getting it done now. We were able to put together a swing shift at the warehouse to be able to just add another truck or two a day, and that's what it really took. And not that we're not still working strong. We are. We're working still pretty much around the clock, but it's coming together, and we've caught up from 2 weeks ago. We carried over, meaning on Sunday night we still had 13 routes that are trucks, rather, not routes. 13 trucks that had not been picked. And if everything goes fine today, we will have one on Sunday, and that'll be that Rose 2. So everything should be caught up. So I'm very pleased to announce that here at Azure, on our internal supply chain, we finally got it back back in a timely manner. And I really appreciate all of your patience, your being able to work with us on that. We're sorry about the weird delivery days and stuff that some occurred in some cases. We just it was it was an amazing thing, and it's just, we went, had a more than, in the month of November, more than a 50% increase from July. And, it's just a lot of logistics. To do that, we're very happy to do it, pleased to do it. We want to help as many people get a great food supply as is possible. And, I think we can do that. It's just a little fast. And, hey, fast is good, but it is, it does, getting new people, getting them trained, getting new trucks, drivers, all that stuff. It's hard to do it that quickly. But I think we're back in place. We will be contacting you on that. And thank you for those of you that let people know to come out and help here at Azure. It's been awesome. We've had some very great people and some very great conversations, and yeah, it's been wonderful. I mean, that kind of help from from those of you that really people that really care, and it's amazing. As far as the supply chain in general on the incoming supply, our out of stock rate is a little bit higher than I would like to see. But primarily the cause of that is the extremely slow shipping lanes. So when we're talking about things from overseas, particularly, they're taking way, way longer than they used to. So I had, as an example, I had a load of chocolate products coming from Peru, and normally that's a fairly quick shot. 2 weeks absolute max, from maybe 2 weeks for them to get it ready and loaded, and 2 weeks to get here, max. But this load, we ordered it from the company in July, and they shipped it the first part of September. And we just got it yesterday, actually delivered to the warehouse. Actually Wednesday, correct on that. We got it delivered on Wednesday of this week. So, needless to say, we did not anticipate quite far enough in advance on some of the chocolate items, because we were used to a 4-week. We probably doubled that because we knew things were slowing down, so we went 8 weeks, but it just took longer. So we ran out of some of the chocolate items in the meantime, because it was on this container that was sitting out in the ocean waiting to be unloaded because the ports were all backed up. It's been there, and it's fine, but we were out for probably a month, 2 months on a few items, from then to now. And in some cases we've tried to fill in a little bit with other product. We've done that with things like coconut. I have a coconut containers that just should have been here a while ago and are not here. We filled in a little bit from some other suppliers, people who already had product within the country. The other piece that just is very difficult is the packaging. A lot of our packaging ends up coming from overseas. And even the packaging that we don't get from overseas, like the paper bags, those are made here in the U.S. However, they're because everybody else gets paper bags from overseas, these companies have been slammed extra hard as well. And so that's what's so if you've gotten product in plastic or in we even got all the way down to ice bags at one point for some product, just because we didn't have anything to put it in. Labels, bags, bottles, buckets. Right now, we're out of buckets, although we should have some coming in by Monday. But 5-gallon pails, if you order a 5-gallon pail of coconut oil or vinegar or something, we may not have shipped it to you. Not because we don't have the vinegar or the coconut oil, but because we don't have the pails. Don't have a single one. And so hopefully that will be, that will be getting better. We've been anticipating it. We've been stocking up a little bit on packaging. We may have a few gaps here and there, and have to use the wrong size packaging or something else. I thought it was getting better this summer. We ended up stocking up a lot, but then with business almost doubling this fall, we blew through it and still have, we're still tight on packaging. Some kinds of packaging. Some sizes of the plastic bags. We're out of one size of paper right now. We're having to use wrong sizes or plastic for some of those products. The next should be coming in sometime towards the end of next week. But in the meantime, we want to be able to get you your product. So it may not look quite as pretty as it usually does, and I apologize for that, but we're trying to be as innovative as we possibly can to there are a few things that are extremely tight just because there wasn't enough produced this year. Part of it is due to the drought that was in the Midwest and Canada this summer, and a lot of it due to the delays on the imports. Now, here at Azure, we do not import very much. I mean, obviously chocolate and coconut and things we import, but we do not import beans and rice and stuff like that. Well, we do one rice, but we tell people it's imported. But these kinds of things. But most of the organic product that's in the marketplace for the big players, like Costco and Walmart and some of those people, it is all imported. And then with the delays, they have been going out and trying to purchase as much as they can on the domestic market. So it has driven the price up and or the supply down on the domestic market because there's not enough, or it's too slow being imported. So for instance, garbanzo beans or lentils. Azure gets those domestically, and always have. But now we're having to compete with these real big guys that normally get, garbanzo beans from Turkey or China. And because they can't get it fast enough from those places, they're going out and trying to snatch up the supply that, they're hitting our farmers. And fortunately, we have some good relationships with a lot of these growers, and they're telling us and that. But in order to be, fair, when they get an offer from one of these guys for a higher price, we're having to match that, or at least come close. So it is pushing prices up a little bit more for domestic product. Honey is another one. Prices went up a little bit this year because, again, most of the honey is imported from either China or Argentina. We have some imported honey as well that we sell. The organic, there is no U.S. organic honey. So it's either imported from Canada or from Argentina. But most of the regular honey is also imported. We don't import it, but our beekeepers that we have long-term relationships with, got really good offers that we had to, I don't know if we had to. Many of them would have sold anyway, but we felt like it was the right thing to do, to be fair to them. Hey, if they're If there's a short supply and it's a good year for the farmer and they're getting offers for a higher price, we want to make sure that they, that they get that. It's just, fair to the farmer. So that's so we're seeing some upward pressure on in some of those areas where it's competing with the imported goods. Most of it is because of the import problems that the supply chain is short. There's a few things that are just short, like raspberries. We're getting a few. We may end up being able to get some from Chile or Argentina, or shortly. But this year the crop in the U.S. was just almost non-existent for raspberries, blackberries, boysenberries. They were there was a heat wave in most of that berry country right at the wrong time, and it just made them almost non-existent. So we have a few that we had contracted for and that were in storage from the very short supply that was there, but those are going to be tight. Flaxseed is another item that's going to be really tight. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get any more. Our regular supplier that we normally buy from, had about a 20% crop, of which we've already sold through. So he doesn't have any more. We've been going out trying to find from other suppliers, but there was a lot of people that had a short crop. So there's not a lot available out there just in farmers' bins. We're hoping to find some, but there's no guarantees. I'm really that could end up being really tight this year. And as I mentioned, a few of the lentils and garbs and stuff like that could end up being tight, but not because the crop was down that much. It was down a little, but because of the import markets. There was short crops on quite a few things, which has driven the price up just a little bit. But it's not horrible. I mean, I guess we're seeing an inflationary period for whatever reason, poor management from the Fed apparently, but so that that's playing into the picture as well. But the shortage from the import markets are definitely a big piece, the biggest piece that's driving the prices up. Here at Azure Farm, I mean, we had good crops this year. They were, we sold through a lot of it. We're selling a lot more than we have in the past, but the crops are good, and so far the fall has been nice. Some moisture is about average for this time of year, and so everything right here at least is looking up. But there's a long ways between this first part of December and harvest. So there's a lot of things that can go better or worse, and farming is that way. There's no guarantees. Karen's telling me to tell you how long I think that the supply chain issue will continue. And truthfully, that's more of a political question than it is a logistical question, unfortunately. And my trust in the current political situation is not super high. So my guess, based on the political situation that we're seeing, is that we could be looking at a year of slow ports, additional money. I mean, one of the things that we're having to do is, obviously, the close ports to us are here on the West Coast. So Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, LA. those ports are almost all backed up. Nobody's got, and many of the foreign countries won't even ship into those ports right now. They won't even book freight into them because they don't want their containers sitting there for months on end. They don't make any money on containers that are sitting outside, so they're refusing to take freight into those ports. So we're having to take freight into other ports. For instance, I had to bring the olive oil into Houston. I had to bring the coconut oil into Oakland. So then when that happens, then we have to get it trucked a longer distance. So that adds to the time. So I think that what's going to happen is we're going to see more of that. We're going to have to do workarounds. We're going to have to bring things into Austin, or into Texas, or into Louisiana, or into, Oakland seems to be the best run in California of the ports. Unfortunately, here on the West Coast, they're not doing as near as good a job as they're doing down in the Gulf, as far as getting up, getting through the volume. So it's pretty easy to get freight booked into the Gulf ports, not so easy here on the West Coast. It's still taking longer, don't get me wrong. It's still taking a lot longer even into these Gulf ports. But, it is at least happening. But my guess is, only an educated guess. There's no way to absolutely know how long that's going to last. It could get worse before it gets better. In fact, I wouldn't really be too surprised if it does. And then probably, realistically, we're probably looking at, I think we'll be doing good to get that all straightened out, by next fall. But again, like I say, it's a lot more political than it is physical. This is where politics interferes with innovation. The American people are innovative. We can, we innovate. But if there's political things that are in the way of that, then it doesn't happen that well. Here at Azure, we've been really tried to innovate. And we've done, I think, a pretty good job of innovating and coming up with plan Bs and Cs on getting things out so that there's the least disruption possible to you, all of you, our customers. But when we're talking about international ports, that's outside of our control. And it's highly politicalized. It's just, which is sad. I wish it wasn't. I wish it was completely free market, but that's not the way it works currently. So, there's a question here. How would you recommend customers prepare during these uncertain times? What are, food storage recommendations? And of course, for food storage recommendations, I always recommend having a pantry. Having a pantry with some food ingredients in it is absolutely, I believe, essential for every family. And I'm not saying to go crazy. We don't, probably don't need barrels of raw wheat in the basement necessarily. But having a pantry with at least enough ingredients that you can go for a couple of months if things get really tight is a good idea. And buying in bulk here at Azure, that's what we love to recommend, because not only are you going to have a little bit of food to fill the pantry, but you're going to save a little bit of money in the process. We're not having to create as much it's not as much packaging, it's not as much handling. If you buy 25 pounds of beans or rice or whatever it is that your family eats, and this is my strongest recommendation, is put in your pantry or in your food storage the things that you and your family normally eat. Maybe, and obviously I recommend the best version. Get the organic if you can, get the best. And put, buy a 25-pound bag of the things, or a 50, or how big a family do you have? How much do you eat? How much of that product do you eat? In our family we do. I mean, I don't have as many. I've only have 4 children at home now, which is down for us. So we don't buy quite as big a bag as we did a few years ago when we had 11 children at home. But we still, in our family, there's the things that we normally eat, and in our family we do love rice and beans. Those are favorites, and quinoa and millet and flour. My wife, she loves to bake bread. We do the starter bread and have been for years. It's really, really fun for us. It's a great product. So the flour for the starter bread, we buy that in 25-pound bags. So then we have a bucket, and when the bucket's half full, we get another one. So we have at least a few weeks' supply in our house, even though, I'm going to the warehouse every day, and the mill's almost in our backyard. We still do that. Maybe it's just habit, but I think it's important to have some food in our house, and I highly recommend that for everybody. So my biggest recommendation is to store what you eat, and don't forget to store up the spices and seasonings and stuff too. That's always a great thing. Another thing that stores really well and keeps forever is things like honey. Honey probably will last for 100 years if you keep it dry and cool. Another question: is it necessary to freeze bulk grains and beans before storing? So I guess the caveat to that is, how long are we talking about storing? If we're going to put it, for a longer storage, it's not a bad idea, particularly the grains. Beans, not so much. Insects can lay eggs in grains, and you'd never know it, and they only hatch under the right circumstances, and you never know if they exist or don't. So the temperature, and when the temperature and the humidity get to the exact right spot, so the humidity gets above about 50% and the temperature gets over 65 degrees and not above 85, that becomes the absolute perfect environment for insect eggs to hatch. And that's the primary thing, other than rodents, that you want a bucket or something to keep rodents out. But that's the primary thing, and that can happen, and that can hatch even inside of like a container. So if you have it in a bucket or something like that, even with a gamma lid on, all of a sudden you see that there's some little beetles in your grain, or some webbing, which is from what's called a weevil. The beetles are called, they're commonly known as brand beetles or sawtooth grain beetles. And that could happen a year after you put stuff in storage, when the temperature and the humidity gets just right. It may not have been anything that came in from the outside. It could be. Those can crawl through really small cracks. Now, most beans are not very appetizing to those insects, with the exception of peas. They do like peas. But, so like if you're storing split peas, insects can get in that. But most legume type beans, black beans, pinto beans, all that kind of stuff, they don't really like them. So you don't really, there's no necessity to freeze that kind of stuff. But what happens when you freeze a product, the insect eggs of both the weevil and the sawtooth grain beetle, which are the two primary ones that are going to infect any grain. If you can keep a product at below 10 degrees for 2 weeks, it will kill the eggs. And so you're basically, it doesn't hurt the grain at all. It's meant to freeze. I mean, it freezes in nature in the wintertime. And in some parts of the country, like if you're up in the northern part of North Dakota or Minnesota, they don't even have these kinds of beetles because they've been froze out in the winter. But most of the country doesn't get that cold in winters, and including here, and they don't freeze out. But if you put them in your freezer and create that artificially, can get them below ideally 0 for 2 weeks, then you can store them very, and they could still get in from the outside, but you're not going to get any egg hatch from the inside. So that is a cool trick.
So we do have another question from customer Ashley. She says if she has one of the oxygen absorbers in her bucket of flour, how long is it good for? Meaning if she opens the flour and gets more out and closes it back up, what do you do from there?
If with an oxygen absorber, they're going to activate immediately. So you put the oxygen absorber in, you break the pack, and you screw your lid on. It will create a little bit of a vacuum, and it will displace the oxygen in there, and no insects, and it's going to decrease the rancidity substantially. They're a great product. I recommend them highly. The problem is, if you open that, you cut your bag, or you take your lid off of your bucket, the oxygen will come right back in, and you would have to put a new oxygen absorber in to get the same results as the first time. Yes, I mean some of the oxygen deep in the flour or whatever might be less, but you basically you released the primary benefits of that by opening your package. So the oxygen absorber works really good. You put it in the pack. I love it with the Mylar bag. You put it in the Mylar bag. You put the oxygen absorber in there. You seal it up, and then when you open it, then you dump it into your bucket or your container that you're using on a daily basis, and you use it up. And then if you want to put, that's my recommendation.
So David, if you're storing 25 pounds of flour, would it be better to break it into smaller Mylar bags in smaller portions than just dumping the entire flour, that 25-pound bag of flour, into a bucket and putting oxygen absorbers in?
Yes, if you're going to use it slowly. So if this is a flour that it's going to take you 6 months to use, then you might put it in 2 batches, or maybe even 3. If you're going to use it within 30 days, which would happen in our family probably, no need. It's fine. You'll use it up in plenty of time before there's likely going to be any problems. But if it's going to take you a year to use or 2 years to use, yes, you don't want to put it in a Mylar bag, seal it up, put your oxygen absorber in, and then open it and reseal it and assume that everything's good, because it's not going to be. The usefulness from that is going to be gone. So you can't just dip into it and seal it back up and assume everything's fine, because that's not quite the way that stuff works. So if you put it in this little smaller Mylar bag, we sell these like gallon Mylar bags, which is a great size for a smaller family. You put a gallon's worth. A 25-pound bag would go into those gallons, probably 4. It would take 4 of those to do a 25-pound bag, roughly, depending on which flour it was. Oats, it might take 5.
So what's the best way, a question from another customer, what's the best way to store the oxygen absorbers once you open the package if you're not using them all at once?
Keep them in a sealed bag of some sort. Ziploc, reseal. If you have a heat sealer, reseal the bag. Don't just leave them sitting out, or they will lose over time. They will absorb oxygen out of the air, and that's not where you want it coming from.
So is it better to use like one of those food saver resealers to
The
suck
food
the
saver
air back out?
resealer is absolutely perfect. If you have something like that, it's fine. If you don't have something like that, even a good Ziploc would help a lot.
Okay. I'm just looking to see if we have any more questions here. Is there anything else that you, looks like there's no more questions. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we close?
Well, I just like to close to say thank you for all the support that all of you have given to Azure. Thank you for trusting us with your food needs. We will. I want to promise you that we will do the very best that we can to deserve that trust and to get you the very best food that is available at the best price that we possibly can. And thank you, and hey, have a wonderful week.
All right, so I'm going to jump in back next to David again. Sorry for the chair rolling. I'll have to say that we are pretty low key around here up on the farm. So we appreciate you joining us. We are going to be looking to do Founder Fridays, live streaming on Facebook Live every Friday that we can. If we're not going to have one, we'll be sure to let you know in advance. But David will be addressing different topics on Founders Fridays. And we look forward to having you back with us. Thank you for joining us for our first one. And we'll try to make it a little less, well, now we're going to keep it pretty laid back and low key because this is just who we are around here. And so we just keep it real with you. And we look forward to seeing you again next Friday.